Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome CEO of MedTech Innovator, Paul Grand.
Hi, everybody. So this is our fourth year here at the MedTech Conference for the MedTech Innovator Finals. It's amazing because it really feels like it's the first year in many ways. Every year is different. Every year we're innovating. Every year it gets bigger and better. I want to have a couple minutes to talk about innovation with somebody who I believe needs no introduction because she actually was introduced on the lunchtime panel today. That's Ashley McAvoy from Johnson & Johnson, Worldwide Global Chairman of Medical Devices. So welcome. Thank you for joining us here, Ashley. Maybe we could start off and talk a little bit about what Johnson & Johnson thinks about innovation, from your perspective.
Well, listen, I mean, the fun thing we got to talk about is innovation, right? So we talked a little bit about value-based care earlier for me, but innovation. So, many of you, we are beneficiaries of all of the work that you've done. And, for J&J, half of our growth comes from, inorganic innovation. And a lot of inorganic innovation also feeds our core innovation. So, we always look at unmet need, and we need to create value. There's that value creation thesis and this notion of a return on capital versus the cost of our capital. But, we like to say at J&J, innovation's a company sport, and I would offer all of you to come help us with that so that we can really bring patient delight, and that's what they're waiting for.
Very good. Ask you, with all the innovation activity that you're doing, why does Johnson & Johnson support MedTech Innovator?
Well, first of all, we love to learn early too. I mean, it's a relatively new program, right? A couple years,
yeah.
And but we really have always known we can't do it by ourselves. And I love the notion. We always watch that Shark Tank model of different investment. Well, in healthcare, I mean, talk about a noble purpose and the amazing impact we can have on people. And I shared earlier some of the examples more in pharmaceutical interventions on HIV and AIDS. There's a lot of really neat disruption on the way in medtech. And catheters are getting smarter, sensors are getting smaller, more predictable. There's many more tissue-sparing opportunities in organs. The wearable diagnostics and sensors as the patient gets much more engaged. Everything needs to be connected, and we, being a world leader with some scale, we're not always on the cutting edge on some of those. And so we really rely on your insight and your perspective and your experience, and quite frankly, a lot of your guts and courage to stay at something when you get shut down a couple. So that's really, when we heard about it, and when, again, we were on the ground floor early, we really believe in it. So looking forward to many more chapters ahead.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
It's been great chatting.
Fun. I'm looking forward to hearing about the award winners.
I know, me too. Well, we're going to find out who the audience picks for the winner. So all we do is we tee it up, and then it's all their job
to
vote for the winner.
You get a vote, right?
Oh, very good.
Serious. I saw the awards in the back. So
Indeed.
Anyway, looking forward.
All right. Thank you again, Ashley.
Sure.
Thank you. Innovation is the lifeblood of this industry. When I think of innovation, this is what I think about. It's the faces behind me. It's the people who wake up every single day and do nothing but figure out how to improve the lives of patients. They sacrifice their time, their lives. If we were to go through the stories of these innovators, it would really bring you to tears in many cases. These are people who sometimes don't take checks, sometimes they leave huge jobs, they go and start companies. You'll hear about some of these innovators in a little bit, but this is what I think of. When I think of innovation, I think of the innovators, and that's why we called our company MedTech Innovator, because it's not just about the innovation, but it's the people. When we think about technology, the technology is critical, but it's the people that bring it to market that we want to celebrate, and that's what we do in MedTech Innovator, and not only do we celebrate, but we help bring these innovations to market. We can't do that alone. I have a very efficient, lean team who's part of MedTech Innovator, but I have this incredible extended family at these companies. Our founding sponsors at Johnson & Johnson and RCT Ventures helped create this company. And then we have Amgen, Becton Dickinson, Baxter, BTG, Edge One Medical, Fujikura, Gore, Hoya, Nipro, Nordson Medical, Olympus, and Zymedica, who are all supporters and involved in MedTech Innovator. These are the people who not only write some of the checks, which is super important, but they're also providing us their time and their energy and their mentoring and their guidance. These are the people who are making this happen. The search ends today. So the thing that started a year ago with 700 plus companies, it was actually 733 that applied this year. 733 applications were read by all those people on that prior slide. They actually look at all the applications. From that, we chose 50 companies to be part of our showcase. Those are companies that are 25 early stage companies and 25 later stage companies. I'll tell you about those in a moment. We had 5 finalists who are going to be competing here today, and ultimately we'll be voting for one grand prize winner. These are the showcase only companies, which means these are companies that are our later stage companies. And again, some of the most amazing innovations that are coming down the road. So if you want to learn about transformative innovation, these are the companies to go see. Additionally, from within the showcase pool, we have 25 companies that are our accelerator companies. These are companies that are a little bit earlier stage. We take people who have a technology, have a team, have all of the momentum and things behind them to be successful. So we literally want to find the best startups in the entire world, bring them here, bring them to you, and make sure these companies get the network and the guidance they need to be successful. Because trust me, it takes a village to be successful, as they say. And we have an incredible ecosystem at MedTech Innovator. We're incredibly lucky to have these people behind me and supporting us, because without them, we could not do what we do. So I'd like everybody to welcome the MedTech Innovator class of 2018 behind me. Hold up those trophies. Come on, be proud. Look at that. So these guys are all, these are their MedTech Innovator these trophies for being selected. As I said, these companies were chosen out of over 733 companies. And the important thing to remember is that they're all winners, and that's the point of this. These aren't participation trophies that we just give out. These companies have already won the prize, and I don't take that lightly. That just being in the program for us is the prize. And again, these are startups from all over the world. So these aren't just Silicon Valley startups. These aren't just companies that are in Boston. These are companies that came to us from all over the world. We went to 14 different cities this year to find these companies. We actually traveled all over, as you heard. And we're really lucky to have all these companies who not only are part of this program, but who are spending their time to be part of this program and dedicating their lives to improving the lives of patients. We heard Scott Whitaker today at the lunchtime keynote talk about the importance of what's next and innovation and engagement. And I think engage is the word that I want you to leave with today, because you can't have this happen by just waiting around and hoping innovation is going to show up on your doorstep. You have to go out and find it. You have to engage with it. And I would encourage you to be part of this ecosystem. As I mentioned, these companies are all incredible. Every single one of them is already a winner. It's not always the person who wins first prize who goes on to be the big star. These are all the big stars of our future. So we're very excited about them. We have a number of additional awards that we're going to give out quickly before we start the main program. This is the second year. We've done the Global Health Innovator Award. There's things like pediatrics that need a lot of help, and global health certainly needs our help. So it's fantastic that Team Fund exists, and you can tell us a little about it.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. As Paul mentioned, my name is Yusuf Mazar, and I'm the managing partner at Team Fund. This year's award will be for $25,000. And it goes to a company called EmpowerRT. EmpowerRT's mission is to create a world where people in every country can have access to standard of care radiation therapy. Please join me in welcoming and congratulating EmpowerRT.
Thank you, Yusuf. Congratulations to EmpowerRT. Okay, so let's move this program along. We have 3 incredible companies that have partnered with us for incubator space. It's not just about having a great company, you have to have an ecosystem that surrounds you. So each year, Johnson & Johnson has generously, through their J-Labs group, given away an incubator space, at least 2 a year. And it's incredibly lucky that a company will win this award because they now have the ability to go in and actually work at the JLab space, which is an amazing opportunity. Our first winner for a JLabs award is SPECT. SPECT. Kate, by the way, so you head up our New York JLabs, correct? Absolutely. So it's a pleasure to have you up here. And congratulations to Anka from SPECT. And the second winner of the JLabs Award is Ictero Medical. So congratulations to Ictero Medical. Ictero Medical, also a company that was based in Houston, so I know they're thrilled to have the opportunity to be at the Houston JLabs potentially, which is one of my favorite JLabs. Congratulations, guys. Thank you very much, and thank you, Kate, for coming up. Now let's bring up the slide for the second incubator space. So this is the Gore Innovation Center. Linda Elkins, please join me up here. It's an amazing facility. It's in Silicon Valley. And the thing that's so great about this facility is, in addition to an amazing team that they have access to, there's also this incredible prototyping and machine facilities. There's experts in those materials. So Gore is known for its materials expertise. I got all that great Gore-Tex, stuff in my clothing. But we're thrilled to have Gore as a partner in the program, and to have the opportunity to have a company actually take advantage of the Gore space. And I might make the important point that it was important to Gore that the company that received the award actually could make use of the people and the technology that's there at Gore. So, so with that, let's introduce our Gore winner. Who is that? Stratos Labs. Nicholas, come on up. Congratulations, Nicholas. Great to have you here. Our newest partner in this area, which is Magnify at CNSI, that's at UCLA. So Brian Benson, please come on out. Magnify at UCLA is really an interesting program because, in addition to, again, having space, which is important, it was important that the company that was chosen for this award wanted to make use of the UCLA facilities. And that's something that is really amazing. I've had a chance to spend a bunch of time over at Magnify with Brian, and it's really an incredible facility. It's got everything from prototyping machinery to sequencing. I mean, they got everything you could possibly want, way more than, it's like a big, it's like a candy store for us. So it's an incredible facility. And who do we choose as the winner for the Magnify Award this year? Dynamics. Dynamics, congratulations, Liberty. So I'll tell you about Liberty Foreman. So Liberty is from Dynamics. It's a company that is providing a really amazing technology in the pathology space so that we can actually do pathology in the OR without having to send it out to a lab, which should be incredibly transformative. Congratulations. Thank you. So those are our incubator awards, and now we can get to the main competition. You're going to love these presentations. Make sure you're there to make that vote at the end, because your vote is going to determine who wins the $350,000 first prize. And then additionally, all of the competitors, again, who've made it to this point will win $25,000. So again, they're all winners. So, judges, I'm going to call your names. Please come up and join me here on the stage on the stools. First, we have Jennifer Kozak, a name you've heard a number of times. So Jennifer, please come on out and join us. Jennifer Kozak is Vice President of New Business Development for Johnson & Johnson. Someone who's been an incredible partner to our program, who travels around with me like I go. I'll be in Houston one day, and then I fly to San Francisco the next day, and there's Jennifer there again with me. So wonderful to have you here, Jennifer. Thank you. Please have a seat. Next, we have Ann Sissel, Vice President and Head of Baxter Ventures for Baxter Healthcare Corporation. Ann, again, is somebody who's an incredible supporter of the program, who calls me to talk about startups, who champions startups all the time, and we're just incredibly lucky to have you in the program. Welcome, Ann. Have a seat. Next, we have Linda Elkins, Chief Technology Officer for the Gore Innovation Center, which you just heard about for W.L. Gore and Associates. Linda is a tremendous person who, amongst other things, is a former triathlete. Come, please have a seat. Linda's fantastic and an amazing mentor to our companies, as are the others. And then finally, Christos Monovoukas, who's Vice President of Business Development and Strategy from Olympus. Fantastic to have you here again. And thank you very much, Christos, for being part of this. Christos leads an amazing team. All of these judges are people who are incredibly involved in the MedTech Innovator program. These are people who are incredibly engaged, who then lead teams who themselves are engaged in MedTech Innovator. So we're really lucky to have all of these judges. As I said, they'll be doing a lot of the talking soon enough. So, so we'll let them do that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring out our companies. Each of these companies, as I said, is going to have 7 minutes to do a presentation. So you'll see a clock up. I believe it'll be on the screen during their presentation. There's a 7-minute clock. Now, the important thing about this clock is that as it counts down to 0, when we get to 0, they're done. Our hope is that the company will have enough time for Q&A. We should have about 3 minutes or so, 3.5 minutes for their pitches, and about 3 minutes or so for the questions and answers. So we're going to have each of the companies come on up. Ankur, you're welcome to come on up and join me over here. SPECT is a company that we fell in love with right away. It was a company that does not have a website yet, doesn't have a Twitter account. He uses his Gmail address, and I kept saying to Ankur, I'm like, what's going on with that? We want to tweet about you. And he said, we want to stay in stealth mode. And I said, Ankur, you're going to be on the biggest stage in the entire medtech industry. It's time to come out of stealth mode.
Right. So thank you, Paul. My name is Ankur Gupta, and I'd like to introduce you to SPECT, where our mission is simple: to prevent blindness and improve healthcare. Growing up, I watched my grandfather struggle with blindness. A man who used to read me bedtime stories was now asking me to read him the headlines of the newspaper every day. This was debilitating and unrelenting, and I knew I needed to do something. So, after trying a lot of different things, including sonar goggles, which didn't work, I decided that I would try my hand at going into medical school and becoming an ophthalmologist. In medical school, we spent about 4 years learning the physical exam and about 5 minutes learning the eye exam using this archaic but ubiquitous piece of equipment that you see here. And none of us even know how to use it. And in primary care, since they only have 8 minutes to diagnose your entire body, they don't have the time, physical space, or resources to use the types of cameras that we use in ophthalmologist offices. And I thought, thinking back about my grandfather, that if there was some way to identify his disease 10 or maybe even 15 years earlier, his fate could have been different. At SPECT, now we can. Using a fully automated retinal camera, a nurse, right after taking your blood pressure, can take your picture in less than 10 seconds, and using our own machine learning algorithms and training data, it is 97% accurate at finding referable retinal disease. Now, diabetes and prediabetes is a condition that affects 1 in 3 Americans. And many of you probably know that it can have damage in a lot of your end organs. For a lot of reasons, only 1 in 3 diabetics actually seeks eye care by going to the eye care specialist. And at SPECT, by doing this in primary care, we think we can make that 3 out of 3. With my very resourceful team in Palo Alto, we've been able to put together a very promising stack of technology. With the help of founders who have created over 6 companies, written and authored over 130 patents and publications, I think we're poised to achieve our mission. Our first clinic is starting literally next week in Oakland, and shortly after that, we're launching our second in Dallas, Texas. We've been able to do this with the access to retinal image data from around the world, and we've been very blessed to have these partnerships. And thankfully, with support from wonderful accelerators, including Y Combinator and MedTech Innovator, we've experienced a lot of traction and growth in our data set. And even though it's very competitive to get access to incumbents and strategics like the ADA, Merck, Johnson & Johnson, thank you, J-Labs, we are now poised to increase this growth at exponential scale. And I'd like to invite you now to join us on this mission to identify preventable blindness and improve access to healthcare by building the future of diagnostics, something which if my grandfather had access to, I'm sure him and millions like him would be spared from vision disease. Thank you.
Great job. All right. So our judges.
Yeah, Ankur, how does the machine learning component tie with the retinal imaging? And is there a platform opportunity here?
Absolutely, thank you for asking. So retinal imaging has actually become very hot for deep learning. In fact, there's a lot of open data sets that people have access to. And what's really beautiful about the retina, I think I have maybe, oh, how do I go back? A slide here. So one of our catchphrases is that the retina is the check engine light of the body. And that's because there's actually a lot of systemic disease that manifests in the retina. It's the only part of your body where you have a clear window in, literally to your central nervous system, and you can see vascular hemodynamics and a lot of other problems surface right there. And you can do that without a blood test or without a sensor that's creating any sort of linear waveform. You actually get imaging data without an MRI. And so we're really excited because diabetic retinopathy is something, it's a huge problem that we want to solve. But as we collect that data, there's a lot of other conditions that we're starting to collect covariate or correlating information for that we're going to start building towards in the future.
So along those lines, how much of this is a diagnosis versus providing additional information, and how does that fit into your regulatory pathway?
Thank you for asking. So I think in its initial manifestation, this is something that happens at the point of care, and specifically in primary care. There's actually already a predicate for this that was released, the FDA approved it in April of this year as a diagnostic in a primary care setting, specifically looking for diabetic retinopathy. So the regulatory path is actually fairly well defined as a 510(k) strategy for the machine learning side. The device itself is 510(k) exempt, so we're fairly seamless pathway there. And then in terms of how we move forward, we actually think that since there's a SaaS business model, there's a lot of dashboards and analytics we can provide to the patient, whether or not they're even at the primary care doctor's office. It could be at a Walgreens, at like a pharmacy, or even in their own home in the future. So there's a lot of different settings which would change the regulatory path, but initially it's what I stated earlier.
Can you speak to how you will grow your physician base as well as what your revenue model looks like based on that?
Absolutely. So as you guys probably know, in healthcare, you can't do anything unless the stakeholders are aligned. And so we've been very fortunate that the camera as it's built is taking a retinal image which already has CPT codes for it that primary care doctors can bill even if their nurses are taking the picture. And since a lot of the foot traffic that we're generating to the eye doctor's office would have otherwise never sought eye care at all, we think this is net positive in terms of driving patients to ophthalmologists and optometrists' offices. And if we are intercepting disease much earlier, we think we're going to offset a lot of ER visits. So we're hoping to decrease cost to the system in that way.
Ankur, congratulations for making it this far, and good luck with the competition. My question has to do with competition out there, and specifically with against the big tech plays, Google, perhaps Microsoft at some point. How do you position this technology, your business, against what they are doing?
Sure. So thankfully, if I can, I can't go back to my slides. Just really briefly, the cameras that they use to do what they're doing, they're actually $100,000 cameras. And so those are not something you can put out in the wild and collect training data. We think that by democratizing access to these, that are very inexpensive widgets, we can actually collect a lot more information much quicker and correlate it against people who are both healthy and unhealthy, and not just those who are seeking specifically eye care in other countries where that imaging data is very skewed and biased. So that's sort of our approach there, is to do this in a way that's agnostic to the source of the data.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Great job.
Thank you.
All right, next up we have Arnaud Mascarel from FineHeart. So coming up and joining me on stage. So Arnaud, when we first started talking, I immediately knew he was from France. And we were talking about, wherever he's from, and he's from, Pessac, and I was saying, I'm not really sure where that is. So where is that?
So actually, Pessac is very close to Bordeaux. So we say Pessac, Bordeaux.
Just Pessac, Bordeaux.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
so I've learned something new. All right, good, very good. Well, you'll have the same 7 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Arnaud Mascarel, CEO and co-founder of FineHeart. So I'd like to tell you a story. This is Andre, my dad. 1 year ago, in 5 days, Andre would blow again the candles for his 80th birthday. That's great. But his last year was anything but normal life. During the last year, Andre visited his GP more than 20 times, his cardiologist every month, and has been hospitalized 10 days in ICU. Because for 5 years, Andre has suffered from severe heart failure, this chronic degenerative disease. Andre is one of these million heart failure patients whose heart failure is too advanced to be treated by medication only. He's not eligible for CRT pacemakers and not critical enough for left ventricle assist devices. Of course, Andre is already too old for heart transplantation. So what will be next? How many ICU episodes? Clock is ticking, and there is nothing to propose to Andre. According to the American Heart Association, there are more than 2 million heart failure patients whose disease is not eligible for the CRT pacemaker, and of course, a disease which is growing at a 13% rate, at a cost of $30 billion a year in the US. So, heart transplantation remains the gold standard, but with less than 3,000 available hearts in the US, there is far more losers than winners. So, the fact is that today, severe heart failure patients remain largely underserved with current devices and with current options. The fact is that LVADs remain a bridge to transplant and not a destination therapy. So the question is why? Because LVADs are based on a 30-year-old concept, which was at the beginning of the story, a bridge to transplant. 30 years later, LVADs are still bypassing the heart, circulating the blood into a non-physiological way. Because 30 years later, LVADs are still powered through a percutaneous driveline, leading to more than 25% of infections. So when we founded the company in 2010 with Dr. Garrig, we knew that we had to change the game, and so we had to create a totally new concept. So let me introduce you the ICOMS. This is the first implantable cardiac output management system. Unlike LVAD, the ICOMS doesn't bypass the heart. With the ICOMS, this is the first physiological pump, which is introduced inside the left ventricle through mini-thoracotomy on a beating heart. The ICOMS is able to synchronize to the cardiac beat, improving beat after beat the ejection fraction with less stress and pressure applied to blood. Because it requires less energy than traditional LVAD, we get rid of percutaneous driveline, reducing dramatically infection risk for patients. So far, we have tested and validated our device at a preclinical stage on more than 20 animal experimentations, confirming the concept. The ICOMS is able to generate the same cardiac output than equivalent LVAD, the best LVAD on the market. The ICOMS preserves the left ventricle physiology, meaning this device will be the destination therapy. Of course, at FineHeart, we have assembled a strong international team which is composed with experts in CRT pacemaker, the LVADs, experts in cardiac surgery and electrophysiology, experts in electronics and fluid mechanics. And of course, in order to go up to the first in human, we are with 10 million raising up to now, we have been achieved significant milestones to create and to go up to the last stage of preclinical activities. We have met FDA 1 year ago in order to define clearly the roadmap up to the end of 2021. So to define and to proceed this plan, we are currently raising $25 million in order to go up to the end of the first in-human study. So of course, if you want to write the story with us, come and join FineHeart to bring new life to these million heart failure patients. come and join us to bring this new life to André. Thank you.
Thank you. So judges.
Thank you very much for a great presentation. The way I understand it, unlike traditional left ventricular assist devices, there is no heart bypass with the ICOMs. What evidence do you have to demonstrate your advantages over LVADs?
So, one thing we have to understand is that LVAD today are implanted through global sternotomy. And so patients are on extracorporeal circulation, etc. And so the LVAD will be implanted through mini thoracotomy. So we have already performed several SHIP demonstrating that the minimal invasive approach was possible. We developed a dedicated anchoring system, enabling the device to be underneath the aortic valve, but not trusting the valve, letting the valve open and close, and so letting the heart contraction work on a natural way. So, of course, the ICOMs will be to be demonstrated at a very late stage of the clinical of the disease. But we aim really with the device to go to less advanced heart failure patients in order to be with long-term destination therapy.
Congratulations on getting so far in the competition.
Thank you.
So you presented your roadmap. So when you look at that roadmap and you look at regulatory versus reimbursement versus your technical challenges, which one of those do you think you really have the most impact going forward within the healthcare system?
So we know that today, 1 day in ICU costs more than $10,000. Of course, when a patient like as André goes for 10 days in ICU, or even more, so you have more than 200,000 patients in G20 countries, and almost majority in the US, who have nothing to be proposed. So this patient will spend majority of time in ICU with this cost. So of course, if you are able to propose an innovation to the large scale of patients, you will reduce dramatically costs. So this is one of the main, of course, options for the health system. But besides this, you will improve dramatically quality of life of these patients. Because when a patient receives an LVAD today, when the surgeon implants an LVAD today, he knows that he can done his patient more or less within the 2 years after implant because of lots of complications. 70% of the complications occur with the LVAD after the first year of implantation. So GI bleeding, stroke, thrombosis, everything. So if you are able to propose a device which works physiologically and which gets rid of all these complications, you will improve dramatically the quality of life of these patients as well.
Very good. All right, that's all we have time for. Thank you very much, Arnaud.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Great job. All right. So let's bring up our next presenter. So David O'Flynn from CreeValve. CreeValve is a company that we met when we were in Ireland, which may not surprise you when you hear the accent. But again, it's great to have David here. One of the things that also is fantastic too is that we get to learn things on the road when we're talking to these companies. So CreeValve up here, it's pronounced Cree. So and Cree is for heart, right? So if you have any Irish friends you want to impress them, I guess as you're in a conversation, you can just say like, how's your Cree doing? Very good. All right. So you have the same 7 minutes.
Thank you very much. So my name is David O'Flynn, and I am the VP of Business Development with CreeValve. So think Acushla McCree and you'll kind of get it right. We're developing a transcatheter solution for tricuspid regurgitation, or TR. Now if I can sing to work. So this gentleman has TR. And what's happening to him is that the right side of his heart is dilating. And it's dilating because probably of left heart failure or right ventricular dysfunction. So the leaflets in his tricuspid valve are being pulled apart and they fail to coapt or meet in the middle. This leads to regurgitation. Then you get more dilation and more regurgitation, and so it continues. So what's happening to this poor gentleman is he's got ascites, as you see, he's got peripheral edema, he's got hepatic failure, he's got renal failure, he struggles to walk, he's got really poor circulation, his quality of life is terrible, and he's in and out of the hospital for repeat diuretics, he's using more and more healthcare resources, and all the time his symptoms are just getting worse and worse. Each year in the US and EU, there are 550,000 patients just like that gentleman. Only 1% are indicated for surgery. The rest of them are consigned to medical management of symptoms because we don't have a transcatheter solution right now. So our solution is a transcatheter device that restores the coaptation of the tricuspid leaflets. It's atraumatic. We can deliver it in minutes. It's got a valve in the middle to preserve diastolic flow. And most importantly, we don't interfere with the native anatomy. Now, we've consulted very, very widely to develop this technology because we had to make sure that we understood the patients, we understood the disease, we understood treatment paradigms, reimbursement and regulatory strategies, and of course, physician preferences and needs in terms of treatment. So naturally, there are competing technologies out there. We'd be very lonely if there weren't. Most of them are actually migrants from the mitral side. So these are technologies originally developed to treat mitral disease and being adapted now for tricuspid disease. They've all shown some level of clinical effectiveness, but this is somewhat limited, and indeed the patient cohorts to which they're applicable are limited. CreeValve overcomes these difficulties. So we overcome difficulties in terms of sizing, positioning, anchoring, and of course, of ease of use. We've got a very lean operating model. So to date, we've raised about $1.4 million, give or take, in non-dilutive funding from Enterprise Ireland, which is, is a state agency in Ireland, and EIT Health, which is a European organization. So we've built prototypes. We've proven the concept in chronic and in acute animal studies. We've filed IP. We've done human cadaver studies, and we're well on the way now towards design freeze. So what we're doing at the moment is we're trying to raise a seed round. We've identified about €2.5 million of that. We need to fill that out some more to get us through the design and DV and get us on into the human studies. We're already in discussion with some potential Series A funders. A lead has been identified. A syndicate is coming together, thankfully, and hopefully we'll have some good news on that fairly shortly. Our CEO is not here with us today because that's where she is. She just got married. We gave her the day off. But we've got a pretty good team. So Lucy and Paul are both PhD-level engineers. They both have over 10 years of experience in the medtech industry, including in structural heart programs with Medtronic. Martin Quinn is the leading interventional cardiologist. In fact, he was the guy who implanted the first TAVI in Ireland, and he was the inventor of this technology. I myself have been in medtech for about 20 years in business development. And then we've got guys on the advisory side like Chip Hance, Bernard Collins, and then John Webb, who's a leading interventional cardiologist and a world authority on structural heart disease. So in the end, what is this about? This is about helping a patient group who are really, really sick. What we're trying to do is to restore their native function. We're trying to get them out of the hospital and get them returned to home. We've got an awful long way to go. We have done quite a lot of work to date, but we've got a long way to go, and we need all the help we can get. Thank you very much.
All right,
Nice
judges.
job, David.
Who's my ex?
So you're rapidly marching toward a design freeze of the device coming
Correct.
up in the next, say, 12 months. What do you see as the most important near-term milestones that you need to achieve in order to get to that freeze?
Okay, so we have a number of milestones. So we have financial milestones, obviously, in terms of the funding. And if we don't close the funding, all bets are off. We can't do anything at all. We have to do some repeated animal studies. We've got to bring our animals out to 90 days. We're pretty confident around the design of the technology because the materials that we use are all well used in cardiology, so it's things that you'll all be familiar with, such as porcine pericardium and nitinol and so on. So it's really about the animal studies. We've got obviously some the DV to do, and then we move on to there.
Considering the capabilities needed in developing a transcatheter valve, what supply chain and support networks have you put in place so far?
I'm really glad you asked me that because this is the ad. So Ireland is an excellent place to do this sort of stuff. We're now the leading medtech hub in Europe, and we're well surrounded by strategics and also by tier 1 suppliers who have vast experience in terms of materials and delivery systems. So for example, Vention is one of our suppliers, and Vention would be well known to most of the people in this room. We've also got a deep pool of highly talented, trained and experienced people who've been working for the strategics for years.
Building on that question, what is your plan to scale up now that you have the supply chain infrastructure in place?
So we have a recruitment program ongoing. Obviously, the rate limiting step is to close the funding because it's hard to recruit if you haven't got funding. We're building out our management team, but we're also building out our technical team. So we've got to go through a phase of finishing our preclinical work. We've got to make some ethics submissions. We've got to design a CIP, and we've got to get into humans.
Thank you, Dave. You spoke about the clinical benefits of the device. Can you tell us a little bit about the economic benefits, the reimbursement situation?
So I'll deal with the reimbursement separately. So in terms of clinical benefits, these patients are in and out of the hospital for repeated treatment with diuretics. We're looking at about $86,000 per annum as the treatment cost for these patients. And the problem is they're not getting any better. So all we're doing is managing the symptoms. So if we can find something that stops the disease at its root cause, that makes the patients feel better, this is what it's about. These are really sick patients. If we can make them feel better and keep them out of the hospital for longer, there's your economic benefit. In terms of reimbursement, there are already, I think it's 228 and 229 of the 2 DRGs here. There's reimbursement in the US and Germany. For us, Germany will be the most important country in Europe. It's also the country, by the way, where they're doing about 45% of the TAVIs in Europe, or TAVRs in Europe right now. So that's really our target area.
Perfect timing. Look at that, right at 7 minutes. All right, very good. Thank you, David. Nice job. All right, let me bring up our next company. So Marianne Gassermont from Paris is going to join us from AblaCare. AblaCare is a company that comes to us. It's our second company to come from MD Start, which is an incubator in Paris. And we had SafeHeal a couple of years ago in our final, so it's great to have you here as well. So I guess you're going to tell us all about AblaCare.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
So hello, everyone. I'm Marion Gaspermont. I'm the CEO of AblaCare, which I'm thrilled to introduce you all to today. Over 10% of women worldwide are affected by polycystic ovary syndrome, or PCOS, a leading cause of female infertility. Its hallmark feature is a hormonal dysregulation which hampers ovulation, leading to infertility in 50% of PCOS patients. The current standard of care for these patients is mainly drug-based and aims to artificially stimulate the ovaries. As some of you may know, if you are close to someone who's undergone fertility treatments, they're intense, stressful, have strong side effects and complications, and are very emotionally trying for patients and couples. They bear significant costs, on average $25,000 per cycle, which most patients here pay for out of pocket. They do not correct the underlying issues and only result in a limited effectiveness, meaning they may need to be repeated again and again and again. At AblaCare, we are developing an innovative device to treat PCOS infertility based on a surgical predicate developed in the 1980s called ovarian drilling. It sounds and looks medieval. We didn't come up with the name or the treatment, and this isn't exactly what we do. Drilling is based on the destruction of ovarian tissue in order to reverse the hormonal imbalance and allow women to ovulate naturally. It's incredibly effective and is part of national guidelines, and also has the huge advantage of having a durable effect. Mainly because of its invasiveness, I mean, you can tell from the picture, it's however quite limited in clinical practice today. Our approach at AblaCare would be less invasive, less risky, and less costly than current options. We are combining an access path routinely used by fertility physicians for IVF and the demonstrated and effective mechanism of action of drilling into a single, simple, minimally invasive treatment. The procedure would be performed by fertility physicians in the procedure room using a standard ultrasound probe and needle guide and the AblaCare device. Just as for an IVF egg retrieval, it would be performed under conscious sedation, and the device is slowly advanced towards the ovaries. The needle component of the AblaCare device is used to puncture the surface, and once inside, a small RF ablation catheter is deployed to achieve the desired ovarian tissue destruction, reverse the hormonal imbalance, and lead to ovulation, enabling women to have a much more natural pregnancy experience. No repeat treatments, no serious side effects and complications, no OR. AblaCare represents an initial market opportunity of approximately $3 billion, which we would achieve by targeting fertility physicians in the US and Europe, and an ASP of $3,000. We created the company just a year ago based on an invention by 3 US experts in the field of ablation. AblaCare is operationally managed by a team of world-class engineers and entrepreneurs, and we have surrounded ourselves with leading clinical advisors from the very beginning. We've raised $2.5 million to get us through first in human. Our first patent should issue any day now. We have completed our prototype development and preclinical validation, as well as a pre-submission with FDA and our EU notified body. We're now getting ready for our first clinical trial, which we plan to begin in January 2019, and we'll then raise a Series A to take us through CE mark and our first IDE inclusions. At AblaCare, we are dedicated to helping millions of couples around the world facing fertility issues by providing them with a more efficient, lean, and respectful solution to build their family. With your support and your votes, we can make this a reality. Thank you.
All right,
Marian,
judges.
congratulations again. It's great to see your progress within the last year. It's incredible. What is AblaCare's differentiating advantage, and how do you sustain that in the long term?
Thanks for the question. I've got a quick slide which should help us with this. So this is just a slide presenting the different lines of treatments, and then we can see where AblaCare has an advantage over all options that are available to patients today. So the first one is the durable effect of the therapy. So compared to all medications, which is cycle-based and need to be repeated, AblaCare, like ovarian drilling, would have a durable effect, so you can have multiple pregnancies from just the one intervention. Second is in terms of side effects and complications, which are very, very important in all the medications, medical treatments that are available and can be really life-threatening. And then the third advantage is just more in terms of cost effectiveness and value delivered to the, all players of the healthcare system, patients, physicians, and payers.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So how do you foresee adoption rates in different parts of the world, from the US to Europe to APAC?
That's a great question, and Asia is actually one of our focuses or things that we're strongly investigating at the moment. So in terms of adoption, we will begin with Europe because it's one of those opportunities where it's not necessarily a US first play, which is quite interesting for us in terms of development. So we'll begin with Europe, where reimbursement codes are already in place for ovarian drilling because it's still used quite frequently in practice. And then we'll also lead on to the US market. What we will strongly investigate during our A round is the Asia opportunity. PCOS is incredibly more prevalent in China. There's no more one-child policy there, and fertility is just booming in terms of treatment options, so it'll be a big focus.
You talked about how the current standard of care is risky and it has a number of complications. Could you elaborate a little bit on how the AblaCare device compares to that?
Yeah, sure. So it's part of the information that you can see on this slide, which we can't see behind me. But anyway, so in terms of complications, so we are avoiding all complications caused by hyperstimulation of the ovaries. So as the current treatments aim to really stimulate rather than cure the underlying dysfunction, all these side effects and complications are not things that we would see in drilling. And then the second very big one, which is important, is when you overstimulate, you also increase the chances of having multiple pregnancies, so twins and triplets, which are riskier for the patients, for the future babies too, and are also extremely expensive for healthcare systems. Because here we're correcting the dysfunction, we will be in a normal situation and a normal risk of multiple pregnancies.
Very good. I think it's all we have time for. Thank you, Marian. Thank you very much. Great job. All right, and our last presenter, Richard from Sana, is going to come up and join me. His technology is really interesting. You're going to hear all about it in a moment. Richard is somebody who, we've had a number of different accelerators that we work with, and Richard is all over the place. Every day I keep reading a new press release about somewhere Richard has joined and part of a new class. But Richard, one of the things that was unusual this time in MedTech Innovator, it's the first time this has happened, but Richard's mentor, who you saw in the video, I think before, was so excited about the technology that she joined the company. So that's a really amazing endorsement for the company, and you're going to hear all about it now. Here you go, Richard. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Paul. It's an honor to be amongst this group. Afternoon, everyone. The opioid epidemic is the biggest crisis in American healthcare. More than 72,000 deaths because of opioids in 2017 alone. The problem with opioids is they just mask pain, leaving your body in fight-flight. No rest, no recovery, just temporary relief of pain. So how do I know about this stuff? Well, this is me in Yemen in 1992, near the capital, Sana. Just after this photograph was taken, I was forced to drive that Jeep off a bridge resulting in spinal injuries and a nerve damage pain problem that was so severe I was given a 5-year life expectancy. Like many people, I was given very large amounts of opioids, and very quickly they stopped having an effect. So I was left with two choices: carrying on popping pills until they killed me, or find a better way. This is what led me to Sana, a fundamentally new way of looking at pain management that is drug-free, addiction-free, and risk-free. Sana wiped out all of my nerve damage pain, and I have been pain-free since 1993. Sana works by using patented algorithms of pulsed light and sound and a feedback mechanism that guides the user into a deep state of relaxation. This lessens pain and improves sleep. The first mechanism of action of how Sana works is it restores hemispheric balance. Here you can see the EEG of a chronic pain patient who was suffering also from traumatic brain injury, a notoriously difficult thing to treat. You can see in the after EEG that the balance between the two sides of his brain has been restored. The second part of the cycle is Sana then breaks that pain cycle by getting the user out of fight-flight into rest and recovery. This means less pain in less than 10 minutes. Here is Hattie, one of our earliest users, who had chronic regional pain syndrome. Before using Sana, the pain in her arms was so severe that she couldn't bear the lightest touch, and her pain levels kept her out of school. On the very first time she used Sana, she cried in relief because she was able to touch her arms without pain for the first time in 3 years. She was also able to go back to school. We just completed a placebo-controlled study with Stanford and Special Operations Command. We achieved 2x increase in relaxation, a 3x reduction in pain, and a 5x improvement in heart rate variability, which measures recovery and sleep. We've just raised $4 million to take us through FDA. We're evaluating currently requests to do clinical trials with 30 different clinical partners. And in the last few months, we've won the Under Armour Innovation Award, the Self-Care Award from Bayer, and the Mount Sinai Rehab Challenge. We're now collaborating with all those 3 partners. With Mount Sinai, we're due to start our FDA trial in Mount Sinai in November. And here is our PI. We're very lucky to have Dr. David Petrino, one of the world's experts on the neuromodulation and pain, as our PI. And as you can see, he's excited to work with us too. Trial endpoints, standard subjective endpoints for pain studies, plus objective endpoints, which will show us the long-term biological effects of using Sana. The FDA rang us last week and actually invited us in for our pre-sub meeting 2 weeks early than currently scheduled, and they've asked us to apply for the opioid challenge, which will give us breakthrough status. We're very lucky to have a very good cross-functional team to not only build the device, but bring it to life. Sana saved my life. It's helped many people like Hattie already. Over 1,000 people have used Sana. Since we've been sitting here, 12 more people will have died from opioids. Imagine a world where this doesn't have to happen. Please join us in making that happen. Please vote for Sana. Thank you.
Richard, how does this fit FDA's criteria for their opioid challenge?
That's a very good question. Thank you. So the FDA is looking for 3 things. They're looking for devices that will stop people having to use opioids in the first place, reduce opioid consumption of people who are already using opioids, and also help people get off opioids who are addicted. And hopefully we will fit all 3 categories for them.
Great. Could you talk a little bit about additional clinical trials that you hope to undergo for other indications, expansion of label, et cetera?
Thank you for that. Yes. So the first one will be opioid withdrawal symptom reduction. We're also looking at fibromyalgia, stroke, TBI, PTSD, basically anywhere where there's a benefit from taking someone from fight-flight into rest and recovery. There's almost no area of mental health where the device doesn't have an impact. We're just trying to pick the ones that closest fit our distribution model at the moment.
Congratulations. So how does this drastically different approach you're taking to pain management fit a regulatory or reimbursement strategy?
Thank you for asking that. There are current reimbursement codes which we can plug into due to our ability to allow a physician to actually access patient data on a day-by-day basis. It's also, we're looking at a cost that is so low that we're looking at out-of-pocket. The current reimbursement is minimum out-of-pocket is $4,000 a year approximately, and we're looking at a subscription of around about $30 a month. But we're also looking at trying to persuade payers and insurers that this is the right thing to do. And just yesterday we had a conversation with Blue Cross, and they told us the health economic data is already there. So all we have to prove is we're reducing opioids, and then they will fund it.
So is this a prescription device, I guess? What will be the go-to-market strategy for Sana?
So the go-to-market starts with pain clinics and getting data within pain clinics to help hospital systems make a decision. And eventually, in the long term, we hope to go direct to consumer, but only after a long time working through the hospital systems, so we get broad adoption first.
Very good.
Great. Thank you very much, everyone.
Great job.
Good luck.
Thank you. AblaCare is the minimally invasive device and procedure to treat infertility. Vote 1 for AblaCare. 2 is CreeValve. That's the device to repair the tricuspid valve without the need for surgery. Vote 3 for FineHeart. That's the wirelessly powered pulsatile mini pump for heart failure management. Vote number 4 for Sana Health. That's the neuromodulation device for chronic pain management, sleep and recovery. And vote number 5 for SPECT. That is the machine learning platform to enable PCPs to diagnose eye disease. I'm going to ask each of the judges to take a moment and just talk just very briefly about your experience in MedTech Innovator.
My name is Christos Monovoukas. I'm the Vice President of Business Development for Olympus. We became members of the MedTech Innovator because of exactly this exposure to startups and to the people and the innovators in our industry. So right off the bat, we decided to invest a lot of time in mentoring companies, because we thought the interaction and the way to give back was exactly that for us. So we picked one of the finalists. I'm glad they made it so far. So we've been mentoring them for a whole year. Excellent experience. Hopefully that was helpful feedback that we give them along the way, and hopefully they win. So great experience so far.
So Linda, if you want to tell us a little bit about Gore's experience in MedTech Innovator.
Sure. My name is Linda Elkins, so I lead our Gore Innovation Center in Santa Clara. Just to set a framework, so our mission for the Innovation Center is to create new opportunities, new product opportunities, business opportunities by leveraging Gore's technologies, our material technologies, our business, our distribution, both in medical space, and we're exploring this digital health space by doing that with external partners. So this partnership with MedTech Innovator really fit spot on with our mission and our ability to meet these 50 incredible companies and to mentor them and to be able to drive partnerships forward that align with areas of interest that we already have. So it's been a great experience for us in our first year.
Fantastic. Please go ahead, Anne.
Thank you. Well, I'm Ann Sissel. I lead Baxter's venture capital arm. And I think for Baxter, we're always looking for innovation. And as it's been said, innovation doesn't just show up on your door. And innovation is tough. We recognize that you need to share different perspectives, reshape your thinking, challenge your thinking. And the best way to do that is to continue to build out this ecosystem. So at Baxter, the team that's been involved from our R&D side, from our business unit side, and from the venture arm, we're trying to do that. We're challenging their thinking both internally and helping a lot of these companies really challenge theirs, so we can see some of these products get to market and get to our patients.
Sure. Hi,
They're playing me off. I hear music.
From
Okay, go ahead.
the Johnson & Johnson Business Development Team. And as Paul said earlier in the introduction, we're very pleased to be a founding sponsor of the program. And I think when we looked at this years ago, it was really how can we fuel the early stage innovation ecosystem as venture capital dollars were starting to exit, and that really is our pipeline. But really, it's also not just about companies that J&J might be interested in, but generally, what's good for MedTech. So it's really been great being a part of this over the years. I think the program continues to get stronger. The teams and the companies are better and better every year, and Paul and his team do a fantastic job, so thank you for that.
Thank you. Well, thank you for all of you for all the time and energy you put into the program. It's fantastic. So the winner of MedTech Innovator 2018 is Sana Health. Woo! Congratulations. Fantastic job.
It was a real honor to be voted MedTech Innovator of the Year this year at the AblaCare conference. In front of a room of 2,000 people all voting on their phones for us. Some really good competition. Was a real thrill to be voted winner this year. The MedTech Innovator has been awesome for us. They say it takes a village to raise a kid. Well, it takes a really good team and an army of helpers and friends to get a startup off the ground. And it's been really great to have that mentorship and support.